Welcome back to our next lesson. As always, this first quarter, we're following along with our 100 Days of Greatness training going on in the office. I hope you guys are all sticking with that and watching these on replay so that you can fill in those gaps. If you're not taking the 100 Days of Greatness, then these will still benefit you. Today, we're talking about your profit and loss statement and ultimately your financials. So, let's go ahead and dive into this lesson. If you're watching this on replay, you end up with questions, feel free to reach out to me directly or throw them in the comments section because we usually get notified and we can respond to your question that way. If you have a question about it, somebody else probably does as well. All right. So, it's important that you understand as a real estate agent, as a realtor, you don't just have a job, even though you work for a broker, you are an independent contractor, and more importantly, you are a business owner. Okay, becoming a real estate agent is one of the least expensive ways to become a business owner, and we want to make sure that you treat it as a business. And I know for some of you, you're thinking, Amy, that was not cheap. I'm feeling poor. I'm still in the red. Well, let's get you in the green. But to do that, we have to know where your numbers are. And I can guarantee you, getting started as a real estate agent, taking the classes, passing the test, paying for my license, and getting set up at the association is significantly cheaper than opening a brick and mortar store or ordering lots of product, right? I also have a product-based business in addition to my real estate business, and I can tell you it was cheaper to get started as a realtor. But most people don't treat it as a business. So we need to make sure that you're treating your business as a business, which means that at all times you need to know your numbers. You should have business bank accounts. Okay, if you don't have that, make sure you go set those up today. Don't delay any further. You can set them up online. You can go into your bank. I've got something on my cheek that's distracting me. Sorry. You can go into your bank and set up a checking and savings account, but we want those accounts. They don't necessarily have to be business accounts, right? They can be just personal accounts, but we want them separate from your actual accounts that you use for your personal expenses. In addition to that, you need to be tracking your income and expenses and making sure that you review a profit and loss statement monthly, which is what we're going to spend most of our time on today. And in addition, it's a good idea to go ahead and build relationships with professionals to ensure that you're maximizing the benefits of business ownerships. People like CPAs and tax professionals. All right. So let's dive into making sure that you know your numbers. We've talked about it before. If you need a copy of it, you should have a tracking spreadsheet. Okay. That should be that you should be entering details in on a weekly basis so that you know where you're at and you can track and see if your efforts are paying off. Okay. When we track, there are two things to track. One is your leading indicator and one is a lag indicator. Your leading indicators are your actions, while the lag indicators are the results. Okay. Again, it's important to track and know your numbers. By tracking your numbers, you're going to know whether you're on track to hit your goals. And more importantly, tracking your lead indicators help keep you accountable to your actions. Oftentimes, we can't actually control the lag indicators, right? Those are just the results of our actions, but we can track those lead indicators. Are we making the calls that we're supposed to be making? Are we knocking on doors like we said we were going to? Are we sending out mailers? Right? All of those actions that we're doing. Are we sitting down and having buyer consultations and listing appointments? Okay. By tracking those, it's going to help lead us to those closings, which are ultimately those lag indicators. If you're not on goal, right, your leading indicators are going to reveal if you have an action issue or a method issue. Okay, by tracking and reviewing your leading and lag indicators, you're going to be able to identify if you're not holding yourself accountable to your actions. And if you have been accountable to completing the necessary actions, then you'll know that it's a method issue and you know that you need to adjust your actions, right? Let's say that one of our lead generation methods is open houses, and we say, hey, we're going to host one open house a week. That's 4 per month. And we look back at our tracking and go, oh, well, man, we're not on track to hit our numbers, right? I don't have the closings. I didn't have the number of sit downs with potential buyers or sellers that I was hoping for. And we go back and we look at our leading indicators of how many open houses did we have and how many contacts did we make during those open houses. And we realized that we only hosted one open house. So we didn't get enough contacts to sit down with enough people to lead to an actual listing or a buyer, right? So that would be, hey, I'm failing at the action. Versus if we look back at it and go, man, we didn't have any buyer appointments or seller appointments this last month. How am I doing? I look back and I go, gosh, I hosted all 4 open houses that I was planning to, but I didn't get anything out of those. Now we know that it's a method issue. We need to change up what we're doing, either leading up to, following up from that open house, during the open house, right? We need to change something to get the results that we're looking for. In some cases, it may be that by looking at our lead and lag indicators, we realize that, man, it's just not paying off. I'm just not getting what I want from those open houses. I don't enjoy them anyways. I'm going to change up my lead generation method. Now, that's okay to do. I don't recommend doing this on a monthly basis. We want probably 3 to 4 months of data of consistently doing the actions before we decide to change, because it's a 60 to 90-day turnaround in real estate from the action to actual closed transactions. And so we want to continue to work it for a little while to make sure that we get those results. Okay. Let's see here. So again, lag indicators, okay, leading lag on your tracking spreadsheet. Your lag indicators are the results, right? Total number of units closed, your gross volume, sales price of closed sales, and your gross commission income, right? Total commission, which is the total commission earned prior to any deductions being made. Leading indicators, like I talked about, like how many phone calls you're making, how many open houses you're hosting, how many emails you're sending, right? Leading indicators are your lead generating activities. Okay. In the middle of your leading and lag indicators, that's how many appointments are set and how many agreements signed, right? Those could be considered both leading and lag indicators. I think I actually talked about them as both a moment ago, right? To your lead generation activities, appointment set is a lag indicator, but to close transactions, appointment set are still a leading indicator to the result. Okay. All this is to say, make sure that you complete your tracking spreadsheet weekly or even daily. Okay, tracking your actions and results will be able to hold yourself accountable to the actions and know where you need to pivot to make changes to get the results. So track everything, review your tracking often, and be open to making changes to get the results that you're looking for. I promise you, tracking really does lead to success. All right, in addition to tracking your lead and lag indicators, you also need to make sure you have your banking set up correctly. Okay, as I talked about already, you need to have separate business bank accounts for all of your income and expenses. This means that you should have a business checking account, right? That's where all your business expenses are going to come out of. And only business expenses are going to come out of those. Do not have personal expenses come out of that account. When you need funds from that account for personal use, you're going to transfer those funds into your personal account. Okay. I would get in the habit of paying yourself a salary, right? What do you need to survive on a monthly basis? Leave the rest in the account and every month transfer those funds out, assuming that you've made enough money to cover those expenses. This means that as you have, right, consistent income coming in, and you know what you need to live off of, you, as I said, only withdraw the amount as owner distributions. The rest stays in the business. Okay. At the end of each year, then you can decide if you're going to get a bonus or a pay increase for the next year. Okay. So set yourself up for success. In addition to your business checking account, you should have a savings account for your business. Okay, I would make it a recommendation of having a goal of at least 6 months of business expenses in that savings account at all times. Okay, this is going to ensure that if you have a month or two with no closings, that you can still cover any expenses. Okay, if you have to dig into your reserve account, then you need to make sure to build it back up when you do have your next closing, which is why I recommend only drawing what you need to live off of each month. leaving the rest in the business until the end of the year. In fact, I usually deposit all of my income into a savings account and then just transfer to my checking account what I need for business expenses that month to include my draw. Okay, so that makes sense. So everything, all my commission checks go into a savings account. And then at the beginning of each month, I transfer out my draw and then whatever I need for expenses for my business itself. Okay, so the rest lives in my savings until the end of the year when I make a decision on if I'm going to pay myself a bonus, only after ensuring that I have my reserve account fully funded, right? I've got that 6 months of reserves in there. Okay, so business checking and business savings. Okay, I recommend having one more account. I would have a separate account for tax funds. Okay, because remember, because you're a business owner, 1099, no one's taking taxes out of your checks anymore. So you're responsible for paying your income and self-employment taxes, which means that you want to make sure that you're putting aside 25 to 35% of every check that you get into a savings account earmarked for paying your taxes. Okay, if there's anyone that you don't want to be late in paying money to, it's the IRS. Okay, I can speak out of, experience here that the IRS, if you're late in paying them, they like to assess penalties and interest to those. But if, they have more money than they should, they don't give you penalties and interest back. Anyways, so when commissions come in, right, 25 to 35% of that is going to go into your tax savings account. Okay, it's just a regular savings account. Don't let the name fool you. It's not a fancy savings account. Just have a separate savings account that money goes into so that we don't pull money out of there. The rest goes into your regular business savings account and then transfer what you need for expenses and owner draw into your checking account each month. At the end of the year, again, determine what, if any, additional funds are available in your tax account after you have all your state and federal taxes paid, and what, if any, additional funds are available in your regular business savings account above and beyond your reserve funds, which again, I would recommend being at least 6 months of expenses to include your monthly draw. Okay, if your reserve account isn't fully funded and you have additional funds in your tax account, then fund your reserve account first. And if your reserve account is fully funded, then take a bonus from the additional funds. Use that to fund your vacations for the next year, pay off debt, do that home improvement you were wanting to do, or you may decide to use it to increase your reserve account to 1 year's reserves. The choice is yours. The bottom line here is set yourself up for success by having accounts to run your business out of. All right, keep those accounts only business and make sure that you're prepared for slow months as well as for taxes. Moving right along. Okay, just like we hold our actions accountable with tracking those lead and lag indicators, we also need to track our income and expenses. Okay, that's imperative as a business owner, and there's no excuse to not be doing this. However, I would guarantee you that if you talk to all the agents in our office, there's maybe 10% of agents actually doing this. Everybody should be. Okay, don't wait until you've made more money. Okay, you may not have even closed a transaction yet, which makes it even more important. You need to know what you're spending. You need to know when you're profitable, and you need to know how long you can sustain your business without having income. Okay, this is where bookkeeping and a profit and loss statement comes into play. In order to do this efficiently, I highly recommend that you enlist the help of a system designed to do so. Yes, you could use spreadsheets if you're an Excel whiz, absolutely, but I would highly recommend using something like QuickBooks Small Business. The reason being is that QuickBooks allows you to import your own chart of accounts against some of the other systems out there. And that's going to allow you to import the MREA, or the Millionaire Real Estate Books chart of accounts, for accurate real estate bookkeeping. Okay, that's going to be specific to real estate. So you can, in QuickBooks, a lot of the other bookkeeping programs out there don't allow you to import your own chart of accounts. So you're just stuck with whatever they have. Whereas QuickBooks allows you to import the chart of accounts specific for real estate. Okay. If you want that chart of accounts, reach out to me and I will get you a copy of it in the spreadsheet format that you can import into QuickBooks, or that you can use if you're tracking yours on a spreadsheet. Okay. The number one task that you need to start with is tracking your income and expenses. Okay, since you're going to have a separate bank account for all your business income and expenses, tracking really truly becomes super simple. Okay, a system like QuickBooks allows you to link your accounts. It automatically imports those transactions. So it makes it super easy to go in at least once a month, code the transaction to the correct GL number, or match the transaction to the correct category, right? After you've coded the transactions, then you're going to need to review that information. By reviewing, you will want to make sure that you hold yourself accountable to what you're spending money on. This is a good opportunity to play what we call red light, green light, where we're going to look at each transaction, make sure that the expense is necessary. If it is necessary, it's a green light. And if the expense is unnecessary and you don't have the income to support it, it becomes red light, right? Same thing like in our personal expenses. Feeding ourselves dinner every night may be a green light activity. It may be absolutely necessary, but stopping by Starbucks to pick up your $6 coffee might be a red light expense. Whereas if we don't have the money to cover it, we can't do that. Okay, so just something to, if you do have excess income coming in, there's no reason you can't go to Starbucks and get your coffee. I'm not one to say that you can't have frivolous things, that you can't spend money on what you want to spend it on, but you've got to have money to do so. So, same thing with our business. If we don't have money coming in, we need to figure out what can we cut to stop the bleeding, right? So all the excess things can be cut, things like our office dues, our Supra e-key expense, like those type of things we can't cut. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind as well. Every month we want to track our expenses and play that red light, green light. Let's see here. This is, if you haven't seen it, this is the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. This is your guide to becoming a millionaire real estate agent. It has things in here. I have the special version that's now blurred. There we go. It's got tabbies on the side. So it makes it really easy. It doesn't read like a book. Don't go download it on Audible and think you're going to be able to read through it and get there. But it's got different sections like the budget model, right? Where, what do we need? This is where it talks about leading with revenue, making sure we have income coming in, playing red light, green light. It also gives us a breakdown of what we should be spending on a monthly basis in each of the categories. Okay, so we have to be able to do that, which is why the MREA chart of accounts, if we categorize everything, it makes it really easy for us to look at our profit and loss statement. In fact, QuickBooks does allow you to print out a percentage report, which shows you the percent that you spend each month on each item, each category, and you can see if it matches up with the category here in the section to make sure you're on track. Okay. So I'm going to clarify, though, a few of the categories when it comes to the MREA chart of accounts, or Millionaire Real Estate Agent chart of accounts. The first is your income. Okay, pretty self-explanatory. You're going to see things on that chart of accounts like listing income, sales income, and referral income. Okay, you're going to put in those the total commission earned before any deductions. Okay, there's reasons for that, but we want the total commission earned before deductions. Okay, so before you pay anything to your office or Zillow or referral fee, we're going to put all those items in there. Okay, listing income, that's for listings. Sales income, those are for those buyer income that you have coming in. And then referral income would be, I referred a client to somebody else and I collected referral income. The next thing that you're going to see on that chart of accounts is cost of sales. Okay. When you hear cost of sales, you may be thinking things like pre-sale inspections, marketing costs for listings, photos, right? All those things, all the costs associated with the sale of the property, but that's not actually what goes under cost of sale. Okay. Here, we're only going to list the things that happen if there is a closing. Okay, so if I have photography done of a property, Whether that property closes or not, I have to pay the photographer. Okay. Whereas my transaction coordinator, if the listing doesn't close, we cancel it. I don't pay my transaction coordinator. I feel like there's something wrong there with that, just for the record. I should probably teach a class to transaction coordinators. They should pay an upfront, they should charge an upfront fee. That's my opinion. Because they're doing work on every transaction, regardless of whether it closes or not. Like they should get half up front and half at closing. I don't know. That's just me. If your transaction coordinator starts doing that to you, you can blame me for that. But anyways, cost of sale, referral fee paid to another agent, Zillow fee, transaction fee paid to the office based on the closing or your commission split if you work on a split, right? Whatever that is. But something that's only paid when the transaction actually closes, that's a cost of sale. General rule of thumb is if it appears on your commission demand, it's probably a cost of sale. Okay. But the difference between an expense, right? Your pre-listing inspections, your photography, all those have to get paid whether you have a closing or not, versus transaction coordinator, transaction fee, referral fee is only paid if it actually closes. Okay. Um, let's see here. After that, you're going to have your expenses. It's going to include things like salaries and benefits. As a solo agent, you may not have anything for that area, but as your business grows, you're going to bring on additional staff. Then that section's going to come into play a little bit more. You'll find lead generation expenses. So anything related to lead generation goes in that section, right? And then you have occupancy, things like desk fees, office rent, utilities. Okay. The next section after that is for communication and technology, things like your telephone bill, internet costs, web hosting, right? Maybe your domain ownership might fall in that one. And then next you have education and dues. That's things like attending summit or conferences, classes, license renewal costs, your NAR and local realtor dues, your state dues, and your monthly office dues all fall underneath education and dues. Next category, and it does break it down for you inside of there. The next category is automobile. Depending on how you decide to account for vehicle expenses, those items go into that section. Things like mileage, gas maintenance. If you don't know what I'm talking about of how you decide to do it, that's why you should consult with a tax professional to see what the best route is for you and what your options are. Next, you're going to find a section for things like equipment and furnishings. That would be if you buy equipment or furnishings for your office, new computer, new phone, desk chairs, right? Whatever that might be. And below that, you're going to find the supplies and office expense sections. That's for things like bank charges, service fees, office supplies, copies, office operations, which again, you may not have these things now. Okay. But in the future, you may. Okay. And things that might fall into there as well as your team grows in the future would be things like office morale, like bringing in donuts, office lunch, not your personal lunch, right? Hiring fees, other costs associated with running an office. So when I talk about office operations, that was what falls into that category. After that, you have an insurance section. That's things like your E&O insurance, your automobile insurance, right? If you carry like business liability insurance, anything insurance related, it's not your health insurance. Okay. And then the next section is professional services. That's where like your accounting or tax preparation expenses go along with other professional services. Keep in mind that if you pay a contractor or pay someone for like logo design, that may not fall under professional services. It might fall under other categories. For instance, like logo design might fall under marketing or lead generation because that's why we're using that logo. The contractor would fall into that category as well. Like if we're paying a contractor to do something to a house, because it might fall under marketing as well, because our goal is to make the client happy, to get referrals. So that might fall into marketing or lead generation. Okay. There's different ways to write that off. Tax professional will help you make sure you find one that is familiar with real estate. Okay. And then there's an other expense category. Okay, something that didn't fit in one of the other categories might fall into other expenses. I recommend trying to use that as little as possible. Find one of those other categories. And then below that, we have what we call below the line income and expenses. Okay. Um, this is super important, right? All the items we just covered are above the line income and expenses or items that are directly related to running your business. Okay. Office expenses, fees paid out, marketing, lead gen, office expenses, technology fees, right? All of that. Rest of the items that would go in below the line income and expenses. So if you have interest income from your bank, that's a below the line income. Okay? It's not directly related to our business. It's passive income that's coming in from the bank. Okay? If you have a side hustle that brings in income, maybe something like you showed homes for another agent, okay, that's also going to be below the line income. Same thing for expenses, things like travel, health insurance, expenses that don't directly relate to your business, but are expenses that could be written off. Excuse me, those all fall below the line. Okay, the reason that we have above the line and below the line income and expenses is that we want an accurate depiction of what our actual cost to do business is, not all the other fluff built into it. Let's see, other things that might fall into below the line would be items that your tax professional told you, again, that you can write off, but they don't directly relate to your business. Okay, so just a little handful of things there fall into those two categories. So that's kind of what you're going to see in your categories from the MREA. Once you have all your expenses tracked and coded correctly, just so you know, it's March right now. If you're starting in March at doing your P&L, if you have a good system, whether it's QuickBooks or whatever you're using, it'll actually go back in time. It can pull all your expenses from the whole year. If your accounts are intermingled, right, we've got personal and business coming out of the same account, it makes it a little bit more difficult. You still need to go back and pull all your business expenses out so you can track those. Once we have them tracked and coded correctly, the next step is to compare how you're doing to the MREA, average category spending percentages. That's when you look in the MREA, it's under the budget model section. So as you go to the table of content, the budget model, oops, I didn't get there. It's going to break down with a chart. I have a copy of this too, so I can send this to you as well. You might have been able to see it just then. You can screenshot it. It breaks it down by what your GCI is, okay, or your gross commission income. That's your gross commission before anything's taken out of it. So if I go sell a house and collect X% off of it, which equals $16,000 before anything's taken out of that, okay, then that's my gross commission. It's got it broken down in here, like, so if up to 180,000 in gross commission, up to 300,000, up to 500,000, what your percentage should be. So you want to figure out if you're in line with what you're spending or if you're underspending or overspending. Okay, so for instance, you would take, if your software doesn't do it for you, you're going to take the total spent and divided by your total income. Okay, sorry, you're going to take the total income, divide the total income by each category total. I'm going to get this eventually. Total income divided by the category total, then you're going to multiply it by 100. That's going to give you a percent. So if you spent $450 on lead generation and your gross income was $7,200, 450 divided by 7,200 is 0.0625 multiplied by 100. That's 6.25%. Okay, tracking with me? If we look at the MREA budget model, okay, you're going to see that based on a GCI of gross commission income of less than 180,000, lead generation should be at 10%. Okay, so at 6.25, you're in alignment with the expenses. That being said, you would actually be a little bit low. Low is okay, but there is a saying that you have to spend money to make money. So keep in mind that if you are spending less than what is recommended, you might not be producing to your fullest potential. So you may want to increase your spending to make sure that you're in alignment on that. You might need to be spending a little bit more on lead generation. Okay. If we're not meeting our numbers, just kind of keep that in mind. I would also recommend that you enlist the help of professionals, right? It's always good to get input from professionals when it applies. First person that I'd reach out to is a tax professional. Um, I will tell you, I did not have somebody doing my taxes for the first long time, over 10 years of selling real estate. I did not have a tax professional doing my taxes, which cost me a lot of money. Okay. Um, Now that you're a business owner, highly recommend hire somebody to do your taxes. Stop doing your own taxes. Bring a tax professional onto your team because they're going to ensure that you're maximizing your tax write-offs and can make sure that you're taking all the advantages available to you as a real estate agent and as a business owner. Okay, in addition, I would recommend that you find a tax professional, as I mentioned, that has experience with real estate professionals, and even better, if they adhere to the teachings and belief of tax-free wealth. Tax-free wealth. This one you can get on Audible and listen to. It's going to talk about the goal here is zero taxes. Okay. You know how you get mad at all the politicians because you're like, well, I saw their tax returns. They don't pay everything, they write everything off. Okay. Don't get mad at them. Be like them. Okay. Write off everything that you can with the goal of being zero based tax. Okay. The next professional that you may want to bring onto your team is a financial planner. Between your tax professional and a financial planner, they can look forward and set you up for long-term success. This may mean that they recommend that you set yourself up as a corporation or that you set up a retirement account right there. They're going to be able to advise you on those things. But I would say absolutely hire a tax professional moving forward to file your taxes. Financial planner is a recommendation. And I would say that once you are consistently closing transactions or on track to close at least 12 transactions or more per year, you should sit down with that financial planner. Okay. So before 12 transactions a year, consistently closing one a month, financial planner optional. Once you're at that route, you're upwards of 100,000 at that point. You should be sitting down with a financial planner to make sure that you have a plan set up for the future. And then finally, in the beginning, you can handle your own bookkeeping, right? Categorizing those expenses inside of your program, whatever you're choosing to use. But once you're closing, I would say probably somewhere between like around 2 transactions per month consistently. I would make sure that you hire a bookkeeper on your team. Let them do your books for you. Okay, not that you can't, but your time is going to be better used continuing to generate leads and not doing your books. Okay, but hear me, this is really important. When you hand off your books to a bookkeeper, okay, it's still your job to look at and review your profit and loss statement each and every month and look at your transactions. Their job is to produce that for you. It's to categorize each and every transaction, make sure everything has a name, make sure everything's been categorized appropriately, and produce reports for you. Your job is to look at those reports. As always, I would make sure that any professional you bring on has experience working with real estate professionals. So, bottom line, treat your real estate business as a business, track your activities, have business bank accounts, track your income and expenses, and review your profit and loss statement monthly. Okay, bring on professionals that can help you keep more money in your pocket. Your action step, right, for this lesson is going to be start tracking, get your P&L taken care of, get on track for whatever months have already passed this year up to the present. If you need a copy of the MREA chart of accounts, reach out to me. I'm happy to get it over to you, as well as the MREA percentages for each category. Okay. If you've got an accountability partner, start bringing your P&L statement with you to those accountability meetings. If you're in the mentor program, you should be bringing your P&L with you to each and every mentor meeting that you have, or at least one per month. Okay, so usually like first or second sit down of the month, you should have that P&L with you so that they can look over it with you. I hope you guys found this helpful. I know this is a lot. I know you're like, Amy, this wasn't about selling houses. Yes, but if you have your finances in alignment, you are have control over your income and expenses, then we can feel more confident moving forward. So hopefully that was helpful. If you guys have any questions, throw them in the comment section. Reach out to me directly. Reach out to me to get those forms, and we will see you next week.